My name is Tyler Beckett, 35 years old, living in a quiet corner of Nebraska where the snow falls thick in winter and everything moves as slowly as the Platte River. I work at a supermarket, nothing glamorous, just stocking shelves, helping customers pick out groceries and smiling politely no matter how exhausting the day has been. I'm not the talkative type, and I don't carry big dreams. For me, happiness is simply coming home every night, wrapping my arms around my wife and child and knowing they're safe. People say I'm gentle, kind, quiet. Family has always come first in every decision I make because to me they are everything. We rent a small weathered wooden house on the outskirts of Omaha, with a tiny backyard where the cold wind whistles through the cracks. I live there with Athena, my wife, 30 years old. She's beautiful, long silky hair, sharp green eyes, and a smile that could melt anyone. Athena is smart, ambitious. She went to college on a scholarship and now works at Slade Energy, one of the biggest oil and gas companies in the state. 8 years ago, when we met in a little coffee shop, she said she loved my simplicity, the way I listened without judgment. But slowly I realized she was starting to feel suffocated. Our life was too ordinary. A paycheck that covered the bills, weekend picnics, evenings on our worn-out couch watching movies. Athena wanted more. She talked about exotic trips, fancy parties, career leaps. I tried to understand, but deep down I was terrified I wasn't enough to keep her. And then there's Elise, our daughter, only 2 years old. She's the greatest joy of my life. Elise loves scribbling on everything. Walls, newspapers, even my arms. Those messy crayon lines are masterpieces to me. Every evening when I come home, she wraps her little arms around my legs and calls Daddy in her sweet, lisping voice. For me, just seeing Elise smile and hearing Athena talk about her day was enough for a lifetime of peace. I didn't need a luxury car or a mansion. Family was everything. But that peaceful life began to crack quietly like a hairline fracture in glass you don't notice until it spreads. It was a late afternoon, about 3 months before Christmas. I was driving my old pickup home after my shift, the Nebraska sky heavy and gray with clouds. I stopped at an intersection, and then I saw Athena. She was walking out of the Slade Energy building in a tight dress that hugged her figure, hair dancing in the wind. But instead of heading home like usual, she walked straight to a gleaming luxury car, a black Mercedes, the kind only the truly rich drive. The man inside opened the door and Athena smiled as she slid into the passenger seat. I recognized him instantly. Griffin Slade, 32, CEO of Slade Energy and son of the big boss. Athena used to talk about him every night, voice full of admiration. Griffin is so brilliant, honey. He guided the company through the oil crisis without laying off a single person. I'd thought it was just professional respect. But now, watching her sit beside him, my heart clenched. I tried to calm myself. Maybe she was just getting a ride or they had a late meeting. But from that day on, everything changed. Secretive phone calls started. Athena would take calls in another room, whispering, giggling. "It's just work, don't worry about it," she'd say when I asked. She began coming home late, 8, 9, sometimes past midnight. I had to stay for a deadline, she'd claim, eyes avoiding mine. Those clumsy lies fueled my suspicion. I lay awake beside her, listening to her steady breathing, wondering if I was imagining things. Athena would never betray me, right? We had Elise. We had memories. I clung to that belief, fragile as a thread. Then everything collapsed. It was a rainy evening, exactly 2 weeks before Christmas. Athena texted that she had to work late on the year-end report. I believed her, just told her to eat something and finished my shift at the store. On my way home, passing the luxury hotel downtown, I was about to turn when I spotted Griffin's Mercedes parked under the covered entrance. I don't know why, but I pulled over and waited. 5 minutes later, I saw Athena walk out of the hotel entrance, hand in hand with Griffin under the golden lights reflecting off the wet stone. Her hair was slightly tousled from the rain, but her face glowed with relief and happiness, like someone who had just shed a heavy burden. That burden was me. Griffin slipped an arm around her waist, whispered something. Athena laughed, then they kissed right there under the awning, rain splashing at their feet. In that moment, it felt like all the air had been sucked from my lungs. I gripped the steering wheel, numbness spreading from my fingertips to my heart. Rain or tears? I couldn't tell anymore. Athena, the woman I loved more than life itself, stood in another man's arms as if I had never existed. That rainy night, I knew my family was broken. I waited for her that night. Elise was already asleep, her crayon scribbles on the wall a painful reminder of the happiness slipping away. The door opened. Athena walked in, carrying the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne. I stood up immediately. "Athena, you were with him, weren't you? Griffin Slade." She froze, then turned to me with eyes so cold they sent chills down my spine. I stepped closer, voice shaking. "Why? Don't the past 3 years mean anything to you? Elise is sleeping in there. Do you even think about our daughter?" Athena didn't flinch. She spoke calmly, like reading a verdict. "I don't love you anymore, Tyler. I don't need you. And I don't need Elise." My heart dropped to my feet. The anger inside me vanished, leaving only shock and emptiness. "I've found the only future I want," she continued, voice flat. I collapsed to my knees. Not from weakness, but because my legs simply gave out. "Athena, think of our daughter. We can fix this." She looked down at me with pure contempt. "You're not worth staying for. This marriage has been a burden. You're just a supermarket clerk, Tyler. I deserve someone better." In that moment, I understood. The woman standing before me was no longer my wife. My family was truly over. 2 days before Christmas, Athena packed her things and left without saying goodbye to Elise. When I came home, the house felt hollow and terrifyingly silent. On the kitchen table lay divorce papers next to her wedding ring, placed there carelessly like a cold, final message. My phone buzzed. An email from the airline sent to the shared family account. "Passenger Athena Beckett has checked in online. Flight from Houston to Paris." That's when I understood. She had flown to Paris with Griffin. Paris, the place we once dreamed of visiting on our honeymoon, was now someone else's paradise. Christmas night arrived, snow blanketing everything outside. Neighbors gathered warmly, laughter echoed through thin walls. I sat under the dim yellow light, holding a sleeping Elise in my arms. She curled up tight, tiny hand clutching my shirt, unaware her mother had abandoned her. I fought the feeling of being utterly forsaken, pain crashing over me in waves. "We'll be okay, sweetheart," I whispered, but my voice sounded hollow. Outside, the wind howled, and I felt like the loneliest man on earth. Then came a knock at the door, soft but clear. My heart skipped. Some tiny, foolish part of me hoped it was Athena coming back, even though I knew it was impossible. I opened the door. Cold wind rushed in. Standing in the falling snow was an old man, dignified, commanding silver hair, eyes sharp as blades, staring straight at me. He wore an expensive long coat and stood tall despite the storm. He spoke, voice trembling with emotion yet carrying undeniable authority. "Tyler Beckett, my son, I've been searching for you for 35 years. In that moment, I stood frozen. I tried to pull myself together, took a deep breath, but my voice still trembled when I finally spoke. You must have the wrong person. I am Tyler Beckett, but I'm not your son. You've got the wrong house." My words sounded weak, more like a plea than a statement. But the old man's eyes, unwavering, almost chilling in their certainty, cut me off mid-sentence. Those weren't the eyes of a con artist. They were deep, brimming with emotion and a strength that made me feel small. He didn't blink, just looked at me as if he could see straight into my soul. He answered, his voice low and warm, yet shaking with feeling. "No, son, I'm not mistaken. Let me come inside. I'll explain everything. It'll only take a few minutes, and I promise I'll leave if you want me to." He asked politely, but there was authority in his tone, the kind that comes from a lifetime of giving orders, not begging. I hesitated, suspicion rising. Who knew who this man really was? A scammer taking advantage of Christmas night, a drunk who'd lost his way. But then I glanced outside. Neighbors were still laughing under twinkling lights. and I didn't want to make a scene or wake Elise. Besides, deep down, something told me he wasn't joking. There was something about him that stirred curiosity, even as my rational mind screamed to slam the door. I stepped back and opened the door wider. "Fine, come in, but keep it short and don't wake my daughter." He nodded and walked in with a steady stride, despite the silver hair and deep lines etched into his face. Once we were seated, he cleared his throat and introduced himself formally. "I am Randolph Slade, chairman of Slade Energy, the largest oil and gas company in Nebraska." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Slade Energy? The name hit me like lightning. That was where Athena worked, where Griffin, the man who stole my wife, was CEO. Randolph Slade? I'd heard whispers about him in the papers, a reclusive tycoon who lived behind high walls in a mansion. Why was he here in my rundown rental on Christmas night? I shook my head, trying to stay calm. "Mr. Slade, if you really are who you say you are, why on earth do you think I'm your son? I have parents. I have my own life. This has to be a mistake." Randolph looked at me for a long time, his eyes patient yet carrying an ancient pain. "Tyler, let me start from the beginning. 35 years ago, your birth mother died the moment you were born. Her name was Eleanor, the love of my life. She was beautiful, brilliant, gentle. We met in college, fell madly in love, and you were the fruit of that love." He paused, voice dropping as though swallowing a memory that still hurt. "But Eleanor was frail. The birth was too difficult, and she passed away on the operating table. She left you to me, and left me with a grief I've never truly overcome in 35 years. His voice cracked, eyes glistening. I sat silent, listening, though doubt still flooded my mind. He continued in detail. My or his son's early days in the Slade mansion, surrounded by nannies and expensive toys. He described Eleanor as if she were still alive, voice full of tenderness. "She had the same green eyes you do, Tyler. And that smile, I see it in you." I froze. Green eyes? I'd always wondered why I looked nothing like my parents. They just said I took after distant relatives. Now Randolph's words stirred every buried doubt I'd ever had. He went on. "When you were 2, I remarried, and that was the biggest mistake of my life. Azalea, my second wife, was ambitious and ruthless. She was jealous of you, the true heir to the Slade name. She wanted her own son Griffin to be the only successor. I didn't see the hatred until it was too late." His words stabbed like a knife. Griffin, the man who took Athena, was his son? Meaning, my half-brother? I recoiled, shaking my head violently. "Stop, Mr. Randolph. This is insane." But he didn't stop. His voice grew heavier, pressing down on the entire room. "Then you disappeared, Tyler. Kidnapped in the middle of the night while I was at a company meeting. I nearly lost my mind. I hired detectives, police, turned Nebraska and every neighboring state upside down. Nothing, no ransom note, no message. You vanished as if you'd never existed." He clenched his fists until his knuckles went white. "I searched for you for years. I poured millions into it. Every lead ended in a dead end. Every night I lay awake wondering where you were, whether you were safe or even alive." My heart was pounding now, nerves spiraling out of control. His story was too detailed, too real. Yet it couldn't possibly be about me. Randolph took a deep breath and continued, voice dropping lower. "What finally led me to you was the scandal surrounding Griffin's affair. My second son, your half-brother. Griffin is brilliant but reckless. When I learned he was involved with Athena, your wife, a woman clearly driven by money and status, I had to protect the family name. Slade Energy couldn't afford a scandal." He paused, then said, "So I ordered a full investigation into everyone around Griffin, and that's when they found you." Athena. Her name hit like a punch. I gripped the chair arms, rage mixing with shock. "Athena? You know about her?" Randolph nodded, eyes full of regret. "Yes. My team traced her history, work records, personal life. And then they found your file, Tyler, An ordinary man working at a supermarket in Nebraska. But the details matched impossibly well. Birth date, physical traits, even a small scar on your hand I remembered from when you were little. I couldn't believe my eyes. I shot to my feet, pacing the room, head spinning. You investigated me. You invaded my privacy. But he continued calmly. Deeper digging left me speechless. I discovered that my late wife Azalea had orchestrated the kidnapping herself. She secretly handed you to a couple, Wayne and Patricia Beckett, to raise in exchange for money and silence. I couldn't wait another second. I left the mansion immediately and drove through the snow to find you on Christmas night, to face the son I lost 35 years ago. His words exploded like a bomb. I jumped up again, pointing at him. You're making this up. How dare you take advantage of my pain? My wife just left me, I'm heartbroken, and you show up with a fairy tale. Get out of my house. My voice echoed in the tiny room. Anger surged, but beneath it was fear. Fear that he might be telling the truth. Randolph didn't get angry. He calmly pulled an old creased photograph from his coat pocket. A chubby 2-year-old boy with green eyes and a wide, toothy grin. I went still. That face was identical to the baby photos in my parents' old album. Photos they'd always said were of me. This is you, Tyler. Taken at the Slade estate before you disappeared, he said, voice trembling. I took the photo with shaking hands. Memories flooded back, flipping through family albums, my adoptive parents always dodging questions about my early years. I collapsed back into the chair, mind in chaos. Then Randolph produced one more thing, a sheet of paper. Recent DNA test results he'd secretly run. I took a sample from a coffee cup you used at the cafe near the supermarket. The results are here. Randolph Slade and Tyler Beckett, 99% match. I stared at the photo, then the DNA report, head spinning like I'd been caught in a tornado. Cold sweat broke out. It couldn't be. My parents, Wayne and Patricia, liars? I was the kidnapped son of a billionaire? Athena left me for my own half-brother? Everything shattered. I can't process this, I whispered, voice breaking. I need time. Please, leave me alone. Randolph nodded, no pressure. He stood, gently placing a hand on my shoulder. I understand, son. When you're ready, call me. My number is here. He left his card and walked out into the snowy night. The door closed. I sat there clutching my head, tears streaming down my face. This Christmas night, instead of mere loneliness, I was facing a terrifying secret. My life had just changed forever, and I had no idea where to begin. I didn't sleep a wink that entire night. The small room was pitch black, only the faint glow of streetlights filtering through the thin curtains, casting strange shadows on the walls. Images, faces, and Randolph's words spun in my head like a storm with no way out. I saw the silver-haired old man, his piercing eyes, his trembling voice telling me about Eleanor, my birth mother, the woman he loved most in the world, then Griffin, the man who stole Athena, now my half-brother, and Azalea, the wicked stepmother who staged the kidnapping. I sat up and paced the room, heart pounding. My parents, Wayne and Patricia. They raised me, taught me to ride a bike, drove me to school. They can't be liars. But then fragmented memories rushed back, the way they always dodged questions about my early childhood, the sparse photo albums, the vague sense of not belonging that I'd always brushed aside. I lay back down, buried my face in the pillow, tears soaking the fabric. Elise slept peacefully in her crib nearby, her steady breathing the only reminder that I had to stay strong. But that night stretched on forever, every second a waking nightmare. I felt like my life was a book with pages torn out and someone was trying to glue it back together with pieces that didn't fit. By morning, the snow had stopped, but the Nebraska sky remained gray and cold. I woke up with dark circles under my eyes, head heavy as if crushed by stone. Elise stirred, rubbing her eyes and calling for Daddy. I held her close and forced a smile. But I knew I couldn't take any more. The confusion gnawed at me like a worm. I couldn't even eat breakfast. I needed the truth. I needed to confront my adoptive parents, Wayne and Patricia Beckett, face to face, and find out who I really was. If Randolph was right, my entire life had been one giant lie. If he was wrong, he was insane. I picked up his business card, hands shaking as I dialed. 2 rings, then Randolph's deep, warm voice. "Tyler, you called?" I took a deep breath, voice unsteady. "Mr. Slade, Randolph, I need to see my parents. I want you to come with me, for them to confirm it themselves. If you're telling the truth, they'll admit it." A second of silence, then simply, "I understand. I'll pick you up right away. No more questions." I felt a surge of nervous anticipation, like stepping into a dangerous adventure. I got Elise ready and dropped her off with kind Mrs. Mary next door, who often babysat. "Daddy has to run an errand, sweetheart," I whispered, kissing her forehead. Mrs. Mary looked worried. "Tyler, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just family stuff." Less than half an hour later, a gleaming black limousine pulled up in front of my house, the kind you only see in movies. Randolph stepped out, dressed in an elegant black suit, looking powerful yet weary. He nodded and opened the back door. "Get in, son. We're going to the old town." I climbed in. The scent of real leather and expensive cologne filled the air, worlds away from my beat-up old pickup. The atmosphere inside the car was tense as a drawn bowstring. I stared out the window as melting snow gave way to barren fields. Randolph broke the silence. "Are you scared, Tyler?" I turned to him, voice trembling. "Terrified. Terrified that everything you said is true. Terrified that my parents aren't my parents." He nodded, eyes distant. "I'm scared too, son. Scared that I lost you for far too long." We made small talk. He asked about Elise, about my supermarket job. I asked about Slade Energy, about Griffin. Each question peeled away another layer, but the tension only grew. My heart raced faster as the car turned onto the familiar road leading to Wayne and Patricia's weathered wooden house. It looked the same: moss-covered roof tiles, overgrown front yard, faint smell of wood smoke. I swallowed hard, stepped out, Randolph right behind me. When Wayne and Patricia saw me walk in with a well-dressed older man, they froze. They were sitting at the kitchen table, Wayne reading an old newspaper, Patricia knitting. Surprise turned to worry on their faces. "Tyler, what are you doing here so suddenly?" "And who's this?" Wayne asked gruffly, standing but his hands shaking. Patricia squinted at Randolph. "Son, who is he? He looks rich." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart pounded like a drum. We sat at the old wooden table. The air felt heavy, like before a storm. I asked them one single question. "Mom, Dad, am I really your biological son? Or was I adopted?" It was like a bomb went off. They flinched, hesitated for a split second. Wayne's face turned red. He shot to his feet, knocking over his chair, and roared, "What the hell are you talking about, Tyler? Don't say crazy things. You're my son. Born right here in the local hospital. I remember that day clear as day." His voice was loud, but I saw panic in his eyes. Patricia sniffled, wiping tears with her sleeve. "You're all grown up now and don't need your old parents anymore, is that it? You dare question everything we sacrificed for you? We gave up so much to raise you, and now you come here accusing us?" My chest tightened, nerves skyrocketing. They were dodging, and that only made me more certain. Randolph had been silent, sitting straight as a statue. Now he spoke, voice low and ice-cold, echoing in the small room. "I am Randolph Slade, Tyler's biological father, and I have proof that you two have hidden my son's kidnapping for 35 years. It was like lightning struck. Wayne and Patricia instantly turned on Randolph, faces purple with rage. Wayne pointed at him. "You're a lunatic. You filled Tyler's head with this garbage, didn't you? Trying to steal him from the family that raised him. Get out." Patricia sobbed louder. "You're a con man. Tyler is our son. You'll never take him." The air was suffocating. I sat in the middle, head spinning, hands clenched under the table. Randolph remained perfectly calm. He pulled the DNA report and the old photograph from his briefcase and placed them on the table. This is DNA proof that Tyler is my son. And this photo, the 2-year-old boy who was kidnapped. If you don't tell the truth, I will call the police right now for aiding and abetting a kidnapping. You will face prison. Wayne and Patricia collapsed as if all strength had drained from them. Wayne fell back into his chair, face pale, clutching his chest. Patricia sobbed uncontrollably, shoulders shaking. They looked at each other, then at me, as if the secret they had buried for 35 years had just been ripped away. Silence stretched, broken only by crying and the wind howling outside. Finally, Wayne slumped, voice hoarse and defeated. Fine. We confess. We took money from your late wife, Azalea Slade. She paid us a large sum to take the child far away and raise him as our own. In exchange, absolute silence. At the time, we thought it was our chance to get ahead. But we were wrong. Patricia nodded, trembling, tears streaming down her regret-filled face. You're not our biological son, Tyler. You were brought to us when you were 2. We did try to raise you, truly, but... Her voice broke. She couldn't continue, and that silence hurt more than any confession. I crumbled. My entire childhood, every ounce of trust, shattered. My heart ached like it was being stabbed. Tears poured out uncontrollably. Why? Why did you do this? I choked, voice breaking. They hung their heads, unable to meet my eyes. Randolph gently placed a hand on my shoulder. Enough, son. Let's go. I stood, legs heavy as lead, and walked out of the house I once called home. The wind outside cut like knives, but my heart was colder. I didn't look back, just walked to the car, tears blurring my vision. On the drive home, memories of every slight suddenly flooded back like an old film playing in reverse. I finally understood why I had always been treated coldly. As a child, the smallest mistake, dropping a glass, getting a little dirty, earned furious shouting from Wayne. You're so clumsy, Tyler. Can't you do anything right? While my friends' fathers just laughed it off. Patricia never hugged or comforted me. When I cried, she'd say, You're too old to be a crybaby. I thought they were strict or just poor, but now it was indifference. Growing up, I always had hand-me-down clothes patched over and over, making me the target of teasing. Birthdays were a tiny store-bought cake, no candles, no gifts. A bike? You think we're made of money? Wayne snapped when I begged. Every wish was dismissed. I learned to go without, to make do myself, but I always craved a real hug. As an adult, I still tried to be a good son, sent money every month even on my small supermarket salary, fixed the house whenever I visited, painted walls, repaired plumbing. In return, a cold nod from Wayne, and occasionally, You'll never amount to anything, Tyler. Still working at that supermarket? As if my efforts were just duty, never enough to earn real love. Patricia said little, but her eyes always looked through me like I was a stranger. I had thought they were harsh because we were poor. Wayne a mechanic, Patricia a housewife, scraping by in a small town. But now, through the lens of truth, I saw it wasn't hardship. I had never truly been their son. They raised me for money, not love. My heart felt torn apart. Tears streamed down my face in the car. Randolph sat beside me, listening quietly as I poured it all out, then said softly, Son, I will make it up to you. But for now, rest. The car rolled back toward Omaha, but inside me everything was still chaos. This confrontation had changed everything, and I knew the storm was only beginning. When I got back to the apartment, I walked in like a ghost, slammed the door shut, and let the darkness swallow everything. The room felt as empty as my chest. The wind howling outside sounded like mocking laughter. I collapsed onto the old sofa, the same one where just weeks ago Athena used to sit laughing with Elise. Now everything I had ever believed about my life had just crumbled. Elise was still asleep at Mrs. Mary's, and I was grateful she didn't have to see her father falling apart like this. I sat in the dark for hours, listening only to my own heart pounding, as if trying to remind me I was still alive. My eyes fell on Randolph's business card on the table, glinting faintly in the streetlight. He was my real father? A billionaire? The thought was both intoxicating and terrifying. It made me tremble. That night I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling while 1,000 unanswered questions tore through my mind. In the days that followed, Randolph visited quietly, never pushing. He would arrive in the afternoon, knock softly, and bring bags of food from upscale restaurants, fresh salads, toasted artisan bread, imported fruit I'd never tasted. "I thought you should eat properly," he'd say, voice low and warm. He never asked about my decision, never pressured me to call him Dad. Instead, he brought gifts for Elise, beautiful dolls, colorful picture books, and played with her as if trying to make up for decades suddenly lost. Elise took to him instantly, giggling when he lifted her high and told fairy tales in that deep, commanding yet gentle voice. She scribbled all over his hands without fear. Randolph just smiled, a rare smile that softened the deep lines on his face, and let her do whatever she wanted. Watching him play with my daughter stirred a storm inside me, gratitude that he had appeared and brought warmth to this cold house. Disbelief that this reclusive billionaire, chairman of Slade Energy, was sitting on my living room floor playing Tea Party with a 2-year-old, and a pain I couldn't name, because I didn't know whether to let him in or keep my distance from the father I had only just discovered. One afternoon, while Randolph was stacking wooden blocks with Elise on the floor, the room felt unusually warm and peaceful. He was building a tower. Elise squealed with delight every time it toppled. I stood in the kitchen making coffee, forcing a smile. Then the door suddenly burst open. No knock, just the familiar jangle of keys that made my heart stop. Athena walked in wearing a tight, short dress, hair in a high bun, with Griffin beside her wearing his usual smug grin. She had come for the last of her things left in the closet and to pressure me into signing the divorce papers. I stood frozen, coffee spilled across the floor. Elise looked up and called "Mama" in her innocent voice, but Athena barely glanced at her daughter. Both Athena and Griffin froze when they saw Randolph in our tiny apartment. Griffin stammered, face draining of color. "Dad, what are you doing here? Why are you in this loser's house?" Athena went white, clutching her purse, clearly confused. "Mr. Slade? What are you doing here?" Her voice shook. Her eyes darted between me and Randolph. The air turned razor sharp in an instant, tension rising like a wire about to snap. Randolph said nothing at first, just stared at them with eyes cold as steel, sitting on the floor yet radiating absolute authority. I clenched my fists, rage boiling as I looked at the two people who had destroyed my family. Athena, the wife I loved, now standing next to her lover, and Griffin, my half-brother. I confronted Athena immediately, voice shaking with fury. "What are you doing here? Showing up with your lover right in front of our daughter? How can you be so cruel you won't even look at Elise once? She calls you mommy and you treat her like a stranger." My words threw Athena off balance, her face flushed. She stammered meaningless excuses. "You, don't blow this out of proportion. I just came to get my stuff. Elise, she'll be fine. I'm busy, work in Paris." But her words rang hollow, weak. I could see panic in her eyes. Griffin stood beside her, arms crossed, trying to look calm, but his hands were trembling. Cornered, Athena lashed out, unleashing all her frustration like a flood. "Shut up, Tyler. You're a failure, always stuck in that dead-end supermarket job. You never gave me or our daughter the life we deserved. I had to live in this dump while Griffin gives me everything. Travel, a real house, luxury cars. Did you think I could stand it forever?" Her words stabbed like knives. My heart shattered again. Elise started crying, sensing the tension, and I scooped her up, trying to soothe her. But Athena wouldn't stop, eyes blazing. "You've always been weak, Tyler. No ambition, no money, nothing. I was right to leave you." Griffin smirked and twisted the knife deeper, voice dripping with mockery. She's right, Athena. This guy was born at the bottom, poor in money and poor in drive. She did the right thing, ditching a pathetic loser like you. A supermarket clerk? Hilarious. He looked at me like I was garbage beneath his shoe. My blood boiled, adrenaline surged. I wanted to lunge at him, but Elise in my arms held me back. Randolph had stayed silent, but I saw his fists clenched tight. The instant Griffin finished speaking, Randolph slammed his hand on the coffee table. Bang! The sound echoing like thunder, silencing the entire room. He rose to his full height, towering and commanding, and roared, "Silence!" Everyone froze. He stared straight at Griffin, voice ice cold. "How dare you speak to your older brother that way?" The words exploded like a bomb. Griffin's eyes bulged in disbelief, stammering, "What are you talking about?" "Him. My brother. Impossible." Athena's mouth fell open, face white as paper. "Tyler, Griffin's brother? Mr. Slade, you're joking, right?" Randolph nodded once, voice low but unshakable. "Yes. Tyler is my firstborn son, kidnapped 35 years ago. DNA has proven it." Griffin lost his mind, face crimson, screaming, "Lies! You've been tricked, Dad. This guy's just a gold digger." In his rage, he kicked over a chair, hurled a cheap decorative vase to the floor, shattering it into pieces, and cursed wildly, "Bullshit. I don't have a brother. You're an idiot, old man." He stormed toward the door, shoving Athena aside. She stumbled after him, face panicked. They left chaos behind. Shards of glass everywhere, Elise crying harder, the air thick as after a hurricane. Randolph watched his younger son go, eyes filled with exhaustion and helplessness. Not just at the outburst, but because he knew this tragedy stemmed from his own mistakes years ago. He sighed, sat down, and with trembling hands began picking up the broken pieces. I stood beside him, emotions churning, rage, shock, and a strange flicker of relief. Elise quieted in my arms, and when Randolph looked up, I gave a small nod of thanks for defending me, even if only for a brief moment in the storm. "Thank you. Thank you, Dad, for standing up for me," I whispered, the first time I called him that. He gave a sad smile. "I will always protect you, Tyler, from now on." But I knew the real storm had only just begun, with Griffin and Athena out there, and the dark secrets of the Slade family still waiting for me to face. After that chaotic confrontation, everything seemed to calm down, but only on the surface. I tried to return to normal life, dropping Elise at daycare, going to work at the supermarket, stacking shelves with a forced smile. Then the anonymous letters began. The first one was a plain white envelope shoved under my door, no stamp, no address. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were just a few typed lines. "Leave Randolph immediately. Don't even dream of entering the Slade family or you'll die." My heart pounded, cold sweat broke out. I crumpled the paper and threw it away, telling myself it was just a sick prank. The letters kept coming, one every day, sometimes taped to my car. "The Slade family isn't for trash like you. Back off before it's too late." I couldn't sleep, lying awake with images of shadowy figures lurking outside the window. Elise slept peacefully beside me, and I held her tighter, terrified the threats would reach my little girl. It wasn't just letters. Unknown numbers called day and night, a nightmare without end. The phone would ring at midnight. I'd jolt awake, heart racing. I'd pick up, only heavy, deliberate breathing on the other end, slow and savoring my fear. "Who is this?" I'd ask, voice trembling. No answer, just the breathing. Then the line went dead. Another time, while pushing a cart at the supermarket, my phone buzzed. "Who do you think you are? Slade is not your name. Disappear, or your daughter pays." Those icy threats left me in constant, paralyzing tension. I checked locks 3 times before bed, kept a knife under the pillow, and every time Elise cried at night, I leapt up like I'd been shocked, terrified someone had broken in. Every hallway noise, neighbors' footsteps, the wind, made me clutch Elise closer, afraid she'd be dragged into the venomous web of whoever was behind this. Then the media exploded like a tidal wave, sweeping away the last scraps of peace. One morning, I opened my phone and my heart sank. A headline in the Nebraska Daily screamed, "Imposter claiming to be Slade Energy billionaire's son? Scam or truth?" The article painted me as a gold digger exploiting Randolph's affection to climb the social ladder. They dug up my past, old photos from the supermarket, quotes from former co-workers, even interviews with Wayne and Patricia, now saying, "He's greedy. He abandoned the family that raised him." Blogs spread like wildfire. Fake Tyler Slade, billionaire family conned by a broke nobody. Every rumor pointed the same way, as if someone was orchestrating the attack. I knew this wasn't random. It was a sophisticated media assault only Griffin and possibly his mother Azalea could orchestrate. Griffin, my half-brother, was furious that I threatened his inheritance. Azalea, the woman who staged my kidnapping, certainly didn't want her secrets exposed. Under public pressure, life became hell. Neighbors started giving me suspicious looks. Mrs. Mary, who used to watch Elise, now whispered to others when she saw me, "I heard he's scamming the Slades." Coworkers gossiped behind my back. "Tyler's rich now, or just a con man?" I overheard it during breaks. The isolation grew heavier every day. Elise was still carefree, but I feared the other kids at daycare would pick up the adults' talk. I withdrew, spoke less, and every night came home to sit in the dark holding my daughter, wondering if I should just disappear to make it all stop. Randolph called repeatedly, voice full of worry. "Tyler, let me put you and Elise under protection. I have bodyguards, a secure estate. You can't stay alone. It's not safe for the little one." He offered again and again, bringing gifts and advice, but I kept hesitating. I wasn't ready to step into that dangerous world of money, schemes, and people like Griffin. "I need time, Dad," I said wearily. I was afraid that accepting would mean losing the gentle, ordinary Tyler Beckett forever. But deep down I knew I was being weak, and fear was eating me alive. One night, watching Elise sleep in her crib, soft curls, angelic face, I realized that if I kept retreating, my daughter and I would remain targets forever. Silence meant being crushed. The letters would turn into actions. The media would devour us. She didn't deserve to live in fear. The next morning, under a weak Nebraska sun, I called him, voice firm. "Dad, I'm ready. Not for the name or the money, but because I need to protect Elise. I won't live in fear another minute." Silence on the line, then Randolph's voice trembling. "My son." I've waited so long to hear those words. Randolph sounded as if a decades-old weight had lifted. He promised protection and vowed to bring me back into the Slade family openly and honorably. "I will tell the world, Tyler. You are my son, the legitimate heir. No one will dare touch you again." My heart raced. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. That same day, Randolph acted. He held a press conference, standing before flashing cameras and microphones. I watched on TV, heart pounding. "Today I announce that Tyler Beckett is my biological son, kidnapped 35 years ago. DNA has proven it, and he is the rightful heir to Slade Energy." The news shook Nebraska. Papers went wild. Social media exploded. "Lost billionaire's son returns. Slade family scandal." I sat in my apartment holding Elise, feeling the world collapsing around me. Neighbors knocked to ask questions, co-workers called to congratulate, but I knew this was only the beginning. A grand Slade family gathering was scheduled, just weeks away at the main estate, the day I would officially appear before relatives and everyone waiting to see me fail. Randolph warned, "You must be strong, Tyler. They will test you." I nodded, but anxiety gnawed at me. Griffin and Azalea were surely plotting something. That event signaled a new storm on the horizon. The day of the final family gathering finally arrived, a bitterly cold winter afternoon in Nebraska, with light snow flurrying like a reminder of that fateful Christmas night. I carried Elise out of the apartment. Bodyguards escorted us to the gleaming black limousine. The car glided smoothly through familiar streets, then turned into the exclusive estate area on the outskirts of Omaha, a world ordinary people like me had never even dreamed of entering. When the car stopped at the gates of the Slade mansion, I was overwhelmed by a level of luxury I had never imagined. Towering wrought iron gates with intricate carvings, manicured gardens still green despite winter, and the main house rising like a palace. White stone walls, Greek columns, stained glass windows sparkling under the lights. Luxury cars filled the courtyard. Uniformed chauffeurs stood at attention. I stepped out holding Elise. The wind cut like knives, yet sweat beaded on my forehead. The bodyguards opened the gate and we walked in, each step heavy, tension peaking. I imagined Griffin and Azalea waiting inside with fake smiles and hidden schemes. What would they do? Insult me? Or worse? Inside the grand hall, warmth radiated from a massive fireplace, but the stairs were ice cold. The long dining room, more like a banquet hall, was packed with Slade relatives. Powerful faces in expensive clothes. Armani suits, glittering evening gowns, the air thick with costly perfume. They sat around an exquisitely carved wooden table laden with elaborate French dishes. Foie gras, fine red wine, gleaming silver cutlery. Some whispered and laughed among themselves, but the moment I walked in carrying Elise, the entire room fell into absolute silence. Every eye fixed on me, an outsider in a new suit that still betrayed the awkwardness of a supermarket clerk. I felt like an animal in a cage, heart pounding, cold sweat running down my spine. Elise buried her face in my shoulder, frightened. I rubbed her back. "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's here." Randolph rose to greet me with rare warmth and pride. He strode over quickly, hugged me gently and beamed, "My son and my precious granddaughter." His voice echoed, yet the room stayed silent. He led me to the head of the table, his own seat, and announced, "Everyone, this is Tyler Slade, my eldest son, lost for 35 years. Even though the press had already reported it, the room erupted in protest. Fists slammed the table, voices shouted, "He's not your son. You've been tricked." Skeptical questions flew at me. What proof does he have? DNA can be faked. The tension was a wire about to snap. My hands shook. At the far end sat my stepmother, Azalea Slade, 58, elegant and commanding, the absolute ruler of this world. Arms crossed, back straight, her knife-sharp eyes stabbed straight at me. She wore an expensive black gown, hair in a severe bun, diamonds glittering at her throat, like a queen on her throne. Beside her were Griffin and Athena, both radiating cold disdain as if my presence were an insult. Griffin stared with contempt, a half-smirk on his lips, fingers tight around his wine glass. Athena, my ex-wife, avoided my eyes, her red dress striking yet making her look small in this setting. The silence quickly dissolved into sneers and whispers. Some looked me up and down and murmured, "Look at him. Cheap clothes." Others turned away in disgust. A few watched with amused curiosity, as if I were temporary entertainment. The long-lost son? This is straight out of a Hollywood movie. I stood there feeling stripped bare before the crowd, but I held Elise tight so she wouldn't be afraid. Azalea rose slowly, voice calm yet razor-sharp, cutting through the air. "Randolph, what are you doing? Bringing a low-class stranger of unknown origin into this family is dangerous. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment, and that will destroy the Slade name. We are a powerful dynasty, not a charity for the poor." Her words sliced deep. Many nodded in agreement. Griffin jumped in, voice dripping with mockery, standing and pointing at me. "Exactly, Dad. Tyler's just a lucky nobody, a mediocre supermarket clerk trying to latch onto the Slade name and change his life. Someone like him doesn't belong at this table. He pushes carts for a living and now dreams of being an heir. Laughable." Athena sat silently beside him, but her scornful glance confirmed everything he said. Other relatives piled on like a flood. A middle-aged man, probably an uncle, shouted, "He's a stain on the family. We don't need outsiders." A young woman in a dazzling gown sneered, "Playing the victim? The press will tear him apart again soon enough." The room turned chaotic, mocking laughter, fists pounding the table. I stood in the middle of the storm, arms wrapped around Elise so she wouldn't be scared. My heart felt like it was shattering, rage surging, but I said nothing, refused to back down. I stood tall, as if their insults could no longer break me. I thought of everything I'd survived, Athena's betrayal, my adoptive parents' lies, and told myself, "You've already overcome worse. Don't fall now." Suddenly, Randolph slammed both hands on the table, bang, silencing the entire room like thunder. He rose, towering and commanding, sweeping an icy glare across the relatives. "Silence, all of you. Anyone who insults Tyler one more time will be cut from this family immediately. Tyler is my son, my own flesh and blood, and opposing him means opposing me." His voice boomed. Everyone bowed their heads and went quiet. He turned to Azalea and spoke low, cold, just for her ears. But I was close enough to hear. "If you can't accept the truth, I will make the kidnapping public, and then the one who loses everything will be you." Azalea went white, hands clenching. She collapsed back into her chair, eyes averted. For the first time, she had lost control. Randolph took my hand gently. "Come, son. Bring Elise." We walked out of the dining hall, leaving behind a room of stunned chaos, whispers starting again, but weaker now. In the hallway, my heart still raced, tension slowly draining into exhaustion. But I knew this was only a small victory. Azalea and Griffin wouldn't stop. We sat in a private parlor. Randolph outlined the next steps. "You'll start working at the company from the ground up." I nodded, mind still reeling from the insults. That night back home, I lay awake, haunted by Azalea's pale face and Griffin's fury. The storm had passed, but dark clouds still hung overhead. I held Elise close and whispered, "Daddy will be stronger, sweetheart." This confrontation was only the beginning, and I had to be ready for whatever came next. After that stormy debut, everything appeared to settle down, but only on the surface. Randolph refused to let Elise and me stay in the old rental apartment any longer. He said it was too cramped and unsafe. Within days, he moved us to a brand new upscale apartment in downtown Omaha. A modern high-rise with glass elevators, a children's playground, and a fully equipped gym. The apartment had 3 spacious bedrooms, an open-plan kitchen with a state-of-the-art oven, and a balcony overlooking the Platte River sparkling in the sun. "This is your new home, Tyler. I want you and my granddaughter to live properly," he said warmly as he handed me the keys. I stepped inside, stunned by the cleanliness and brightness. No more moldy smells, no more creaking wooden floors. Elise squealed with joy, running around and scribbling on the pristine white walls with crayons, no one to scold her. I sank into the soft leather sofa, feeling more grounded than I ever had, as if a huge weight had finally been lifted. Yet deep down, I knew the storm behind us hadn't truly passed. The contemptuous stares from the family gathering still haunted me, and I wondered what Azalea and Griffin would do next. Tension rose whenever I thought about it, an aching, persistent pain. I started rebuilding life, moving our old things into the new place, setting up Elise's room with toys Randolph had bought, trying to get used to belonging in such luxury. At night, I stood on the balcony, cold wind whipping past, staring at the city lights and telling myself, I won't let them break me so easily. Randolph didn't stop there. He brought me into Slade Energy as a regular new hire, starting at the very bottom, administrative assistant in the logistics department, so I could learn how the company really worked. You need to climb from the ground up, Tyler. No leaning on me, he said sternly, but with unmistakable affection. For someone who had only ever worked in a supermarket, this was an entirely different universe. Slade Energy's headquarters stood in the heart of the city, a towering glass skyscraper with a marble-floored lobby, high-speed elevators, and sharply dressed employees. My first day, I wore the new suit Randolph gave me, clutching the leather briefcase he'd bought, heart pounding as I walked in. Colleagues greeted me politely, but their eyes were full of curiosity. They all knew from the news I was the long-lost son. My direct boss, a middle-aged man named Mark, assigned tasks, scheduling meetings, taking minutes, handling emails. It sounded simple, but I quickly realized the difference. Everything moved at breakneck speed, phones rang nonstop, and the atmosphere was like a never-ending race. I sat at my desk staring at screens full of oil industry charts, feeling completely lost. The first days were a nightmare. In meetings, jargon flew past me: fracking, upstream operations, barrels per day, like a foreign language. I sat silently, absorbing what little I could. The workload was crushing. Hundreds of emails an hour, reports due yesterday, everything so fast I could barely breathe. The corporate culture was brutal. 12-hour days, cutthroat competition, zero tolerance for mistakes. Pressure came from people who didn't want me there. I went home exhausted, head spinning, holding Elise as I fell asleep, still thinking about tomorrow. Every morning I woke up anxious, terrified I'd fall behind, get fired, and prove Griffin right, that I was nothing but a nobody. But I refused to give up. I learned bit by bit, filling notebooks with terms I looked up on Google during lunch breaks, reading oil industry books Randolph sent. I arrived at dawn and stayed until midnight to finish reports. Thanks to Randolph's quiet late-night phone calls, patiently explaining concepts like supply chain optimization, and my own stubborn effort, I started catching up faster than I thought possible. 1 week, then 2, I grew more confident, handling emails quickly, offering small suggestions in meetings, even fixing mistakes for others. Colleagues began looking at me differently, curiosity turning to respect. "Tyler, you learn fast," Mark said once, and my heart warmed. Elise greeted me at the door with cheers. Yay, Daddy's home. Those moments made the exhaustion fade, but I knew Azalea and Griffin weren't sitting idle. While I improved, they didn't stay quiet. They assigned impossible tasks, deliberately throwing me into complex projects, hoping I'd fail or get fired. One morning, Mark handed me an analysis of the supply chain for a new oil field, a senior-level job with a 3-day deadline. "Orders from above," he said, avoiding my eyes. I knew above meant Griffin, now CEO. I wrestled with mountains of data, complicated charts, unfamiliar terms like API gravity and drilling permits. That night, I stayed up all night, fueled by black coffee, scribbling frantically. Tension peaked at the thought of failure. If I screwed up, I'd be gone and Griffin would laugh. But I finished, exhausted, and the report was praised. In meetings, they dismissed my ideas, cut me off, even remotely deleted files right before presentations, all disguised as little accidents. Once I'd prepared slides on logistics optimization, but when I opened the file, gone. Griffin sat at the head of the table smirking. "Tyler, not ready? Maybe let someone else handle it?" Laughter rippled around the room. I stood there burning with embarrassment, but improvised from my handwritten notes. Azalea, joining via video, interrupted. "Very amateur, Tyler. We need experts, not hobbyists." I bit my tongue, seething inside. Athena was no exception. To stay in Azalea and Griffin's good graces, she spread distorted stories about me inside the company, twisting how people saw me. I overheard colleagues, "Athena says Tyler was lazy and unambitious, that's why she left." She sent anonymous emails with warped versions of our past, like how I neglected the family. One day, a female coworker asked during break, "Tyler, is it true you made Athena miserable?" It hurt, but I just shook my head and said nothing. Now living in the Slade mansion with Griffin, Athena avoided my eyes in the hallways, guilt mixed with resentment. I endured it all without once complaining to Randolph. I didn't want to seem dependent. I solved problems myself, recovered deleted data, practiced presentations alone, even monitored emails to prevent hacking. With every challenge, I gained skills and experience, advanced Excel, oil market knowledge, and real allies at the company. The anxiety was still there, but now it was positive. I'll prove them wrong. My persistence paid off. Colleagues started respecting me for not giving up. A guy named Dave bought me coffee. "Tyler, you're tough. Nothing like the rumors." Even some relatives softened. One cousin, Victor, clapped me on the shoulder at a party. "You're doing well at the company. Sorry I misjudged you." I smiled but stayed wary. Randolph watched my progress from behind the scenes, smiling as he saw me not just survive but grow, stronger, calmer, independent. He called me to his private office. "Son, I'm proud of you. You're changing everything." His words moved me deeply. Yet the better I did, the more threatened Azalea and Griffin felt. Their stares grew colder, filled with unease and hatred. In one meeting, Griffin glared, gripping his pen. "You really think you belong here?" I didn't answer, but I knew he was scared. I had no idea that the higher I climbed, the bigger target I became. Behind the praise and smooth progress, a trap was being set, and I was walking straight into it, unaware. A vague unease stirred like a bad premonition, but I pushed it aside and focused on work. The family war was raging quietly, and I was at the eye of the storm. After I started working at Slade Energy, I tried to keep life steady, but the tension slowly built like storm clouds before rain. Every morning I woke early, brewed strong black coffee in our bright new apartment, looked at Elise sleeping with her innocent smile, and told myself today would be better. The job at the company grew more absorbing. From administrative assistant, I was given small data analysis tasks, and I learned day by day. Yet that uneasy feeling never left. Strange glances from colleagues, silent calls from unknown numbers, the sense that someone was watching. I brushed it off as fatigue, but deep down I knew Azalea and Griffin hadn't given up. They were venomous snakes, and I was the prey that had just come into view. The tension reached its peak one late evening when I came home after a long shift. Our new apartment was high up, with huge windows overlooking the twinkling lights of Omaha, but that night the hallway was pitch black. The light bulb had burned out. I was fumbling with the key, Elise clinging to my leg, begging for ice cream, when heavy footsteps echoed from the elevator. I turned, and my heart stopped. Azalea Slade stood there in an expensive fur coat, hair in a severe bun, flanked by several tattooed thugs radiating menace, muscular, glaring, arms covered in dragon and phoenix ink. They blocked the hallway, turning the air thick with fear. A neighbor peeked out, then slammed their door shut. Panicked whispers echoed. Azalea stepped forward, voice cold as a blade. "Tyler Beckett. Or should I say fake Slade?" She sneered, standing in my doorway, unleashing vicious insults about my background. "Who do you think you are? A broke supermarket clerk from the backwoods of Nebraska, now trying to worm your way into the Slade family? You're nothing but trash, a stain I tried to erase 35 years ago." Her words lashed like a whip. The tattooed men laughed loudly, one punching the wall so hard the corridor shook. She mocked my attempt to infiltrate the family, recounting my childhood with biting sarcasm. "You used to push carts at a supermarket, and now you dream of running things? Pathetic. Randolph is blind, but I won't let you destroy everything." Then, ice cold. "If you don't disappear from the Slades, right now, you'll lose the thing you value most." Her eyes flashed with malice, and I knew she wasn't bluffing. The thing I valued most. Elise? Randolph? I stood firm, back straight, though inside I was shaking. "Leave before I call the police," I said, voice trembling but resolute. Azalea laughed loudly, turned and walked away with her thugs, but her threat exploded in my head like a bomb. I stumbled inside, hugged Elise tight. She asked, "Who was that lady, Daddy? Why was she angry?" I soothed her. "Just a stranger, sweetheart." But that night I didn't sleep at all, staring at the ceiling, mind spinning. Who was she targeting? Elise, my daughter, my only joy? Randolph, the father I'd just found? Or even Wayne and Patricia, despite their confession? Fear crushed me. Every sound outside made me jump and check the locks 3 times. I imagined those tattooed men breaking in and taking Elise. Cold sweat soaked me. The bad feeling grew stronger, like a real storm was coming. I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning I went straight to Randolph at Slade Energy. He was in a meeting, but when he saw my ashen face, he canceled everything. I told him everything. Azalea's appearance, the insults, the threat, voice shaking, fists clenched. Randolph listened, face turning red with rage. He slammed the desk. She dares. He acted instantly. Doubled security for Elise and me. 24/7 bodyguards, one at daycare, one at the office. He ordered his private investigators to tail Azalea. Hidden cameras, phone taps, using every powerful connection he had. She will never touch you again, he swore. But Azalea was even more vicious than we imagined. One afternoon as daycare let out while I was still at the office finishing a report, my phone rang. Elise's bodyguard, voice panicked. Mr. Beckett, she's gone. My heart stopped. The world spun. He explained. At pickup, 10 thugs attacked him, then bundled Elise into a black car and vanished. I bolted from the office, drove like a madman to the daycare, tears streaming, heart pounding. Elise, where's my daughter? Only an empty playground remained, her toys scattered on the ground. Then an anonymous text, want to see your daughter again? Disappear from the Slades, otherwise you'll never see her alive. That icy threat drove me insane. I ran everywhere, streets, neighbors, called police, but no trace, no security footage. I collapsed on the sidewalk sobbing, tension turning to despair, soul torn apart. Randolph arrived, face pale, mobilizing everything, bodyguards, private investigators, powerful contacts. Calling the police chief. Hiring hackers to scour city cameras, even reaching the FBI through friends. We sat in the Slade mansion, giant screens showing maps, teams searching abandoned warehouses, highways, cheap motels. But no sign of Elise. The black car vanished like a ghost, no plates, no clues. I sat clutching her photo, tears endless. Dad, if I lose Elise, I can't go on. Randolph hugged me. We'll find her, son. I swear. But every minute was torture, every second cutting like a knife. I pictured her terrified, crying for Daddy, and my heart shattered. In desperation, Randolph and I stormed Azalea's private mansion, more lavish than the main estate, with manicured gardens and a pool. We burst in like wounded animals, bodyguards behind us. Azalea was calmly drinking tea in the living room, face impassive. What have you done with Elise? I roared, lunging forward only to be blocked by her own massive security. Randolph thundered, Azalea, you dared kidnap my granddaughter? But Azalea coolly denied everything, even mocking us. Kidnapping? I'm far too busy running the company for such nonsense. Randolph, you're blinded by this stray you picked up. And Tyler, go back to your supermarket. Every accusation met smooth denial. She laughed and had her guards throw us out. Just as Randolph was about to lose control and call lawyers to sue, Griffin suddenly appeared at the main estate, face pale, hands shaking, eyes red. He walked into the meeting room, voice breaking. Dad, Tyler, I know where Elise is. We froze. I grabbed his collar. What did you say? You know where she is? Griffin broke down crying, confessing he had overheard his mother planning the kidnapping, eavesdropping on Azalea's call to her thugs, and knew the abandoned house on the outskirts where Elise was being held. Azalea, on video call, shrieked in disbelief. Griffin, are you insane? I did this for you, and you betray your own mother. But Griffin shook his head, tears streaming. I only wanted to ruin Tyler. I never wanted to hurt a child. Mom, you went too far. He fell to his knees, sobbing. I was wrong, Dad. I was jealous of him, but I never wanted murder. I didn't wait another second. With Randolph's men, we raced to the address. An abandoned house outside Omaha, dusty, windows broken, weeds overgrown. We stormed in, guns drawn, my heart about to explode. Inside it was dark and musty, and a child's crying echoed. I rushed to the back room. 2 guards were instantly overpowered by our men. There she was, shaking, terrified but unharmed, eyes red, clutching her doll. I swept my daughter into my arms in that dark room, tears falling without end. Baby, Daddy's here. Don't be scared. I've got you. Elise sobbed, clinging tight. Daddy, I was so scared. Randolph stood behind us, watching father and daughter reunite, relief and fury warring in his eyes. He placed a hand on my shoulder. It's over, son. We're together again. But his voice shook, eyes burning with rage at Azalea's cruelty. After Elise was safely rescued, Randolph and I immediately began gathering every piece of evidence related to the kidnapping. We didn't wait. Even the next morning at the Slade mansion, he summoned his private investigation team, a group of professionals with laptops, cameras, and thick files. We returned to the abandoned house and collected evidence from the scene: fingerprints on doors, hair fibers, shoe prints, everything photographed and analyzed. The two captured thugs, Azalea's hired muscle, were interrogated by police and under pressure confessed. They took orders from the big boss lady with phone numbers and messages leading straight to Azalea. I sat beside Randolph, watching the data from their phones. Calls from a hidden number, but the investigators hacked it and traced it to one of Azalea's secret phones. My heart pounded as the evidence became crystal clear. A message reading, "Make it clean, no traces." Randolph clenched his fists. She won't get away with this. We worked day and night. I transcribed witness statements, neighbors who saw the black car, the bodyguard who was ambushed, recounting every detail. Exhaustion wore me down, but adrenaline kept me awake. This was our chance to end the nightmare. Randolph's team didn't stop at Elise's case. They reopened the 35-year-old files, recovering documents long thought lost. He hired top forensic tech experts who restored old police reports from Nebraska archives, kidnapping records from when I was 2, bank transfers showing Azalea paying Wayne and Patricia Beckett. I sat for hours poring over the files, faded photos of my own kidnapping, barely legible witness statements and new evidence, old emails from Azalea to a henchman ordering, "Take the boy far away." Absolute silence. Randolph explained, "I searched back then, but she covered her tracks well. Modern technology finally caught her." My hands shook holding the papers. Childhood memories flooded back, every scolding, every deprivation, all because of her. Tension surged at the thought of court. Azalea would finally face her past. Father and son worked night after night compiling evidence into a watertight case to file against Azalea for kidnapping and endangering a child, past and present. We filled the mansion's conference room, the long table buried in documents. Randolph analyzed the legal angles. 2 kidnappings, one historical, one current, enough to put her away for life. Griffin agreed to testify, trembling. "I'll tell everything about Mom's crimes, Dad." Those nights were endless. I dozed off at the table, dreamed of Elise crying, woke with my heart racing. But the dossier was complete. Hundreds of pages, ironclad proof. We handed it to the lawyers, who nodded. With this, victory is certain. Tension mixed with relief. Justice was coming. News of Elise's kidnapping leaked, perhaps from police or investigators, and the media exploded. One morning, I turned on the TV and froze. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire Slade's granddaughter kidnapped." A dark hand inside the family? Nebraska papers, then national outlets, dove in, detailed reports of Elise's disappearance and rescue, suspicion falling on Azalea. Is the Slade stepmother the mastermind? I read with my heart racing, knowing I was at the center. Facing exposure, Azalea denied everything, claiming I had staged the drama to destroy her. She held a press conference, heavily made up, voice calm. "Tyler is an opportunist who orchestrated this to seize the inheritance. I am innocent." She rallied remaining loyalists, relatives, powerful friends, to create a wave of support. Friendly outlets ran pieces defending her. Azalea Slade, victim of a family conspiracy. She called relatives, "Don't believe Randolph. He's old and losing his mind. This is all a plot to bring me down." Randolph refused to let her manipulate further. He summoned the entire family to the main mansion's grand meeting room, demanding they witness the truth. The gathering took place on a rainy night. The mansion blazed with light, but the atmosphere was heavy. About 40 relatives filled the long table, every face tense. I stood beside Randolph, heart pounding, Elise safe at home with bodyguards. Randolph began, "Tonight I reveal the truth about Azalea. He presented evidence of Elise's kidnapping one by one. Crime scene photos, confessions from the captured thugs, messages from her phone. The room buzzed with whispers. Then the evidence from 35 years ago, restored files, bank transfers to the Becketts, emails ordering my kidnapping. The family was stunned, mouths agape. How could she do something so evil? Azalea really did this? Azalea kept jumping up, shrieking denials. Lies. Everything I did was to protect the family. Randolph and Tyler are twisting facts to destroy me. She pointed at me. He's an outsider. He has no right to the Slade name. But this time, no one defended her. Even former supporters fell silent, eyes averted. The evidence was too overwhelming. When cornered, Azalea screamed that she had done it all for Griffin. I did it for my son. Griffin is the true heir. But Griffin shook his head, stood and said, Mom, you were cruel. You didn't just kidnap once, you did it twice, all for ambition and power. I don't want this anymore. His words were the final blow. Azalea collapsed, sobbing, Griffin, you're betraying me. At that moment, police entered the mansion to arrest her. Randolph had called them earlier. She looked around, realizing no one stood with her anymore, eyes filled with despair as handcuffs clicked shut. The trial was swift, faced with irrefutable evidence. Griffin's testimony, phone data, decades-old records. Azalea was sentenced to 32 years for 2 counts of kidnapping, past and present, ending the power she had wielded for 35 years. I sat in the public gallery, heart racing as the guilty verdict was read. Azalea screamed she was innocent, but the judge shook his head. The evidence is overwhelming. She was led away, giving me one last look of pure hatred. Media went wild. Billionaire's wife jailed for 32 years. Public opinion sided with us, but I felt no joy, just the painful cost of justice. What hurt most wasn't her sentence, but that my adoptive parents, Wayne and Patricia Beckett, though only indirect accomplices, also faced justice for aiding the original kidnapping. Randolph pressed charges. They received 2-year suspended sentences plus community service. When it was all over, I understood my life had turned a new page. But truth always comes at a cost, and everyone involved paid with something they could never get back. I held Elise, watched Randolph smile at his granddaughter, and knew I had grown stronger. Griffin changed. He apologized, and we began rebuilding as brothers. Athena vanished, perhaps in regret. I stood on the balcony, wind blowing, reflecting on the journey. From abandoned supermarket clerk to Slade heir. Life had been a storm, but I had survived. The tension now was about the future, a bright one, but I would stay vigilant forever. After those relentless upheavals, I gradually returned to a normal rhythm, a new life, no longer the hand-to-mouth existence in that cramped old rental. The spacious apartment Randolph bought for us had truly become home. Every morning I woke to the aroma of coffee drifting from the modern kitchen. Elise running around the wide living room, scribbling on the whiteboard I'd bought just for her. She had slowly forgotten the terror of the kidnapping, but I hadn't. Every night I still checked the locks and held her close to be sure she was safe. Randolph visited often, bringing picture books and educational toys for Elise, and sat with me talking about work. My son, this is only the beginning of your new life, he said warmly, and I nodded, feeling stability finally seep in. Yet the tension lingered like a ghost. I dreamed of Azalea in prison, her eyes burning with hatred, or Griffin turning against me again. I pushed the thoughts away and focused on the present, taking Elise to her new preschool where she quickly made friends, and at Slade Energy I steadily proved myself. Like a seed finally sprouting in fertile soil. Starting from the lowest assistant role, I earned promotions. Not through Randolph's influence, but through my own effort. I worked harder than anyone. First in the office, last to leave, double-checking every logistics report for errors. I kept my word. If I promised something, I delivered. And I always put people before profit. In one oil field expansion project, I proposed prioritizing worker safety, shorter shifts to reduce accidents, even though it raised costs. Profit matters, but human lives matter more, I said firmly in the meeting. At first, senior management looked at me skeptically as if I were just a lucky outsider. But over time, the doubt faded. Colleagues started inviting me for coffee, sharing family stories. My boss, Mark, clapped me on the shoulder after a meeting. "Tyler, you're bringing fresh air to this place." The tension was still there, but I realized I was finally being seen. Within the family, my steady presence erased all remaining doubts. Family gatherings at the Slade mansion were completely different now. At first, relatives had eyed me with contempt and whispered behind my back, but as they saw me work hard without leaning on power, they changed. Victor, the cousin who once ignored me, now slapped my back at a party. "Tyler, you've proven yourself. Sorry for the harsh words before." Those who once looked down on me now regarded me with respect tinged with guilt. An aunt hugged me and whispered, "We were wrong, son. You really are a Slade." I smiled and forgave, but the old wounds still ached. The tension rose whenever I remembered the past, but I pushed it aside and focused on the present. Playing with Elise in the mansion gardens, listening to Randolph tell stories about my mother, Eleanor. The family grew closer, no longer divided, and I finally felt I belonged, by blood and by choice. One day, Griffin came to the office in the mansion where Randolph and I were discussing work. His face was pale, eyes red as if he hadn't slept in days. He hesitated at the door, then spoke in a trembling voice. "Tyler, Dad, I came to apologize to both of you." Randolph and I froze. This was Griffin, the man who had despised me, who had enabled countless schemes from stealing Athena to nearly destroying everything. Yet here he stood, a completely different person. Griffin struggled to stay composed, voice breaking. He apologized for everything, for his blind jealousy of the long-lost brother who suddenly appeared, for the hatred his mother had planted in him since childhood, convincing him I was a threat to his inheritance, for the blindness that led to mistake after mistake, helping tear the family apart. He took a deep breath. Tears suddenly spilled. "I was wrong, Dad. So wrong. I was jealous and thought Tyler came to take everything from me. But the kidnapping. I never imagined Mom would go that far. I want to step down as CEO, leave the company, and start my life over. I don't deserve this anymore." Tears fell, the arrogance and triumph were gone. Only a broken man remained, facing his own guilt, for the first time daring to admit he had been wrong. I placed a hand on my brother's shoulder, voice gentle but firm. "Griffin, let the past stay in the past. Everyone makes wrong choices. I was weak once too, letting Athena walk away without fighting. What matters is how we stand up afterward. I want you to stay and help me build a better Slade family. We're brothers, same blood." My words stunned him. Then he broke down sobbing, bowing his head in gratitude, for the first time seeing me not as a threat, but as someone he respected, even owed thanks to. Randolph pulled us both into a hug, tears rolling. "My sons. Finally, our family is whole again." In that moment, the tension melted away, replaced by warmth. We started over. Griffin worked alongside me, sharing experience, and slowly became a real brother. Athena disappeared from Nebraska as if she had never existed. No one knew where, perhaps running from her own choices. I once hated her, the wife who betrayed me, who aided Azalea's schemes, but now only regret remained. She had loved me for my simplicity, yet ambition devoured her. Sometimes I dreamed of her eyes full of remorse, but I woke holding Elise. Mommy chose a different path. The tension about her now was only vague worry. Was she okay? But I let it go and lived in the present. Months later, the board unanimously appointed me CEO of Slade Energy, a decision that left me reeling. Randolph stepped back to an advisory role, spending time with family and his granddaughter, trusting his eldest son to lead the company into a new era. "My boy, I'm getting old. It's your time now," he said, clapping my shoulder at the meeting. I sat in the CEO's chair, looking out over the city from the vast office, heart racing with excitement. I began, meeting with managers, listening and changing things. Under my leadership, Slade Energy entered a new phase of growth. Greater transparency, public financial reports rooting out corruption, cleaner energy, investing in solar and batteries instead of old oil, sustainability and employee welfare, higher wages, better healthcare, training programs. The company thrived, stock soared, and I was proud. From pushing carts to leading an empire, the tension remained, but now it was the thrill of building something better. That Christmas, 2 years after the night Athena left me, the Slade mansion glowed with light. The whole family gathered in warmth we had never known. Snow fell thick outside, but inside the fireplace roared, the towering tree sparkled, and the scent of gingerbread filled the air. Relatives laughed, Victor joking, Elise dashing around in her red coat, ringing like silver bells. Grandpa tried to catch me. Randolph chased her, laughing louder and healthier than ever. Griffin stood nearby, chatting happily with cousins. He was humble now, helping host, and we hugged. Merry Christmas, big brother. I stood by the Christmas lights, watching my father smile with pure joy, watching Griffin talk warmly with family, watching Elise carefree and happy, and I knew I had traveled a long road to reach this peace. Tears fell, not from sorrow but joy, from that lonely Christmas night holding my crying daughter to now surrounded by family. The tension of the past dissolved, replaced by... I realized true strength doesn't come from power or status, but from daring to stand when life tries to drown you. In my weakest moments, Athena leaving, Elise kidnapped, I nearly gave up. But I rose again, for Elise, for Randolph, for myself. I learned that family isn't only blood, it's love, protection, and loyalty, the things I had craved my whole life. Randolph is my birth father, but Griffin became my true brother. Elise is my blood, but the entire Slade family stood with us through the darkest storms. My message to anyone lost: never let others define your worth, only you decide who you become. I was once a failure in Athena's eyes, a stain to Azalea, but I chose to rise, and now I am Tyler Slade. CEO, father, brother. Life is a journey and you are the one at the wheel. Tension about the future, of course, but I'm ready.